Ecuador's National Electoral Council reported on the progress in preparations for the general elections to be held on February the 7th. The World Health Organization has announced that 75% of the vaccines produced to immunize against COVID-19 are concentrated in only 10 countries. And protesters took to the streets of the Lebanese city of Tripoli for the third straight day this Wednesday to question the government's handling of the health crisis sparked by COVID-19. Hello and welcome to teleSUR English. I am Estefania Bravo from the headquarters of Quito in Ecuador. This is from the south. Ecuador's National Electoral Council reported on the progress in the preparations for the general elections to be held on February the 7th. The Electoral Authority informed that the printing of the ballot papers is 98% complete. In this sense, the Military Geographic Institute announced that it is about to conclude this process ahead of the vote. The institute added that the printing of the ballots for national, provincial, and foreign assembly members has been 100% completed. The National Electoral Council also indicated that this task should have been concluded in January, but the delay is due to the fact that the ballot printing for Andean parliamentarians has not yet begun. This Wednesday, the Peruvian government extended the state of national emergency decreed due to the COVID-19 pandemic to February 28th. The measure, which will be enforced as of February 1st, implies the suspension of constitutional rights related to personal freedom and security, the inviolability of homes, as well as freedom of movement in the country and freedom of assembly. In addition, the different departments of the country will be classified according to 3 levels of alert: high, very high, and extreme, according to the infection rates in each region. The move comes as 10 localities have moved into lockdown and in the midst of the medical workers' strike and the health system crisis. Chilean health authorities on Wednesday approved the use of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine against COVID-19 as part of plans to immunize nearly 19 million citizens during the first half of the year. The director of the Public Health Institute, Heriberto Garcia, confirmed that the country expects to receive more than 6 million doses of the vaccine over the course of 2021. The first 4 million doses should begin to arrive in mid-March. This is the third vaccine to be authorized for the use in the country after those produced by Pfizer, BioNTech, and Sinovac. Chile has registered almost 710,000 cases of COVID-19 and some 18,000 deaths, while nearly 56,000 people have already been vaccinated. The National Director of Epidemiology of Cuba, Francisco Duran, updated the nation on the number of COVID-19 related deaths in the last 24 hours.
Unfortunately, 4 patients died. Our condolences to family and friends. It really is a high number. For several days now, medical efforts that are 24 hours on top of the patients, taking care of them, looking for new ways, working to help them recover. But sometimes the evolution of this disease is like this. That's why we will see at the end the number of deaths in the world.
Duran also confirmed that 825 infections were recorded in the last 24 hours.
We did not reach the 15,000 tests that we had achieved the 2 previous days. There were 14,527 tests, out of which 825, the highest number of confirmed cases in Cuba during the entire pandemic since March 2020, tested positive yesterday.
Barbados Prime Minister Mia Mottley announced that the country will begin a 15-day national pause in early February to ensure that public health officials can conduct more home-based COVID-19 testing. According to the official announcement issued by a local media, the pause will begin on February 3rd and will last until February 17th, which will allow health officials to visit the homes of residents in the Caribbean nation to carry out more screening tests. The pause is announced after 2 deaths were reported last Friday Friday in the country, which raised the number of deaths to 9, to which one more is added in the latest updated balance issued by the health authorities. Authorities are still trying to bring a forest fire in the southwest of Argentina that has already consumed more than 8,500 hectares under control. The Forest Fire Prevention Service reported that the fire threatens a large part of the region around El Bolsón in the province of Rio Negro. Authorities have deployed 100 firefighters who, together with volunteers and local residents, are working to put out the flames with the support of 2 helicopter water bombers and 2 light aircraft. So far, local authorities have not reported any fatalities, although several firefighters have been injured in the efforts. The World Health Organization has announced that 75% of the vaccines produced to immunize against COVID-19 are concentrated in only 10 countries. The Director General of the organization stressed that the vaccines are currently being administered in 50 mostly rich countries. The official also rejected the fact that most manufacturers give priority to regulatory approval in rich countries instead of submitting the necessary dossiers to the WHO to prioritize the most affected countries regardless of their income. He also reminded countries that vaccination campaigns must be carried out in an equal and equitable manner. And this Wednesday, the UN called on Israel to guarantee a fair vaccination process for Palestinian citizens. According to the UN Special Envoy for the Middle East peace process, Israel must implement a plan to address the priority needs of Palestinians in the occupied territories and ensure the availability of the vaccine so that Palestinian citizens can be immunized against COVID-19 in line with international law. Bulgaria began vaccinating the elderly on Wednesday against COVID-19. Uliana Dunova, a 69-year-old resident of a nursing home in the central Sofia, became the first elderly person to be vaccinated in the country. Bulgaria began rolling out the vaccine on December 27th, but the first doses went to medical workers. To date, the Balkan nation of 7 million people registers more than 215,000 infections and nearly 9,000 deaths. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson on Wednesday claimed his government had provided unequaled support during the coronavirus pandemic. Responding to Prime Minister's questions after being urged to extend the national furlough scheme, Johnson gave no confirmation but said the government would continue to put our arms around people across the whole of the UK. Funding for businesses to cover 80% of their employees' wages when forced to close by virus restrictions is due to end in April. Meanwhile, Johnson accused opposition leader Keir Starmer of attempting to score political points over school closures. A pressure overload on the oxygen supply at one of the main hospitals in Lisbon area led to dozens of patients being transferred to other facilities during Tuesday night and into the early hours of Wednesday. An official statement released by Amadora Sintra Hospital said that 53 patients in need of high-flow oxygen therapy were moved to other health units in the region. The hospital, which is treating a high number of serious coronavirus cases, said oxygen availability was never an issue, but the overload led to a lack of necessary pressure. According to the statement, no patients had been put at risk. A total of 363 people were being treated at the Amadora Sintra for COVID-19. The hospital claimed that there had been a 400% increase in serious virus cases since the beginning of the year.
Most of these patients have increased needs for oxygen therapy. What we need to do, if prudent, is to transfer some of these patients to stabilize the pressure on the network. We are talking about taking patients to Santa Maria Hospital, Setúbal, Egas Moniz, and also the makeshift hospital in the University Stadium. Other patients without COVID-19 that also need high-flow oxygen, we are assessing the need to also transfer some of these patients to these other hospitals that are providing us with support.
Russian President Vladimir Putin on Wednesday hailed the decision to extend the nuclear Russia-U.S. arms control treaty as a step in the right direction, but warned of rising global rivalries and threats of new conflicts.
Unconditionally, the New START arms control treaty extension is a step in the right direction. However, the divide is fanning out, what is called in spirals. As is well known, the inability and the unwillingness to find solutions substantively in the 20th century resulted in the disaster of the Second World War. Using trade barriers, illegitimate sanctions, limiting financial, information and technological spheres, such games without rules increase risks of unilateral use of military power. This is the danger, the use of force under this or that made-up pretext. It increases the possibility of emerging new conflict zones on our planet. This is what worries us.
The Russian president also warned that the world risks sliding deeper into stability, comparing current global conflicts to the 1930s.
Of course, history doesn't have direct parallels, but some experts whose opinion I respect compare this situation with the 1930s. We can agree or disagree with this situation, but according to many parameters, to the scale and complex and system type of challenges and potential threats, some analogies are tempting.
Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman said on Wednesday the nation welcomes the deal reached by the United States and Russia to extend the new strategic arms reduction treaty.
China welcomes the agreement reached by the US and Russia on the extension of the New START treaty. The extension of the treaty is conducive to maintaining global strategic stability, promoting international peace and security, which meets the common expectations of the international community. China hopes that the two sides will complete relevant procedures for the extension of the treaty at an early date. In addition, as the country with the largest number of nuclear weapons, the United States and Russia still hold more than 90% of the world's nuclear weapons. In accordance with international consensus, the two sides should earnestly fulfill their special and primary responsibilities in nuclear disarmament, further substantially reduce their nuclear arsenals, and create conditions for comprehensive and thorough nuclear disarmament.
The head of the World Food Program warned on Wednesday that the COVID-19 pandemic highlighted the need to strengthen vulnerable supply chains to impoverish nations struggling to feed their populations.
COVID, I think, exacerbated a vulnerable supply chain system and food systems of which so much success has been made, but it's very vulnerable, and we've got a lot more work to do. Because what leaders are now beginning to recognize, and this is the reality we're facing in 2021 with 270 million people on the brink of starvation. If we don't receive the support and the funds that we need, you will have mass famine, starvation, you'll have destabilization of nations, and you'll have mass migration. And the cost of that is 1,000 times more. So I believe you're beginning to see leaders step up and recognize we need to address short-term and long-term solutions.
President Joe Biden says the United States must lead the global response to the climate crisis as he prepares to sign a raft of orders aimed at curbing rising temperatures and to announce a climate summit in April.
In my view, we've already waited too long to deal with this climate crisis. We can't wait any longer. We see it with our own eyes, we feel it, we know it in our bones, and it's time to act. And I might note parenthetically, if you notice, the attitude of the American people toward greater impetus on focusing on climate change and doing something about it has increased across the board, Democrat, Republican, Independent. That's why I'm signing today an executive order to supercharge our administration's ambitious plan to confront the existential threat of climate change.
Protesters took to the streets of Lebanon's second city, Tripoli, for the third straight day this Wednesday, questioning the government's handling of the health crisis sparked by COVID-19. As the population deals with an acute economic crisis, many are protesting the lack of financial support in the midst of the restrictions to curb the spread of the virus. The local currency has plummeted, losing over 80% of its value. Banks have imposed controls of withdrawals and transfers to protect dwindling foreign reserves while unemployment and inflation have skyrocketed. Protesters in the country's most impoverished city were met with tear gas and water cannons by the right union of the Lebanese military. A top Palestinian official welcomed Wednesday plans by the new U.S. administration to reopen diplomatic offices that were closed by former President Donald Trump.
We welcome the steps of the American
We welcome the steps of the U.S. administration. We look forward to reconnecting on the basis of international law and previously passed UN resolutions. Any return to the so-called Trump plan is totally unacceptable. We look for a non-biased U.S. contribution and participation and the restoration of communication with the Biden administration.
America during Trump.
The United States during Trump never acted in a fair manner. It treated the Palestinians in such an ugly way and has bypassed the dreams and aspirations of our children. So the intensification and the increase of settlers in the West Bank has been a clear evidence of the policy of denial. Denial of the existence of the Palestinian people, denial of their rights, and a total refusal to handle the Palestinian-Israeli conflict in a serious manner.
Pope Francis marked Holocaust Remembrance Day on Wednesday by warning that wrapped ideologies can pave the way to another mass extermination.
Today, on the anniversary of the liberation of the Auschwitz concentration camp, we celebrate the Day of Remembrance. We commemorate the victims of the Holocaust and all the people persecuted and deported by the Nazi regime. To remember is an expression of humanity. To remember is a sign of civilization. To remember is a condition for a better future of peace and fraternity. To remember is also to be careful, because these things could happen again, starting from ideological proposals that want to save a people, but end up destroying a people and humanity. Be careful on how this road of death, extermination, and brutality gets started.
Health workers in Myanmar on Wednesday became the first people in the Southeast Asian country to be vaccinated against COVID-19 5 days after the first vaccines were delivered from India. About 100 personnel were vaccinated on Wednesday at the Ayurvedic COVID-19 treatment center in Yangon, the country's biggest city. India, which manufactures the vaccine under license, donated 1.5 million doses to Myanmar, enough to inoculate 750,000 people. Myanmar health authorities on Tuesday announced 411 new coronavirus cases, bringing the confirmed total to 138,368. The death toll increased by 13 to 3,082. Indonesia's most active volcano erupted on Wednesday with a river of lava and surging gas clouds following 1,600 meters down its slopes. Hani Kumaida, the head of Yogyakarta's Volcanology and Geological Hazard Mitigation Center, said it was Mount Merapi's biggest lava flow since authorities raised its danger level in November. After morning rain, ash fall turned into muck in several villages where the sound of eruption could be heard 30 kilometers away. Police and rescue services evacuated people in some villages to temporary shelters in Sleman. Merapi's most major eruption in 2010 killed 347 people.
The information we got was that hot clouds rolled 2,500 meters towards the Krasak and Boyong rivers, and we responded by evacuating villagers to a safe place. From this gathering point, we will then evacuate to the evacuation barracks.
Hundreds protested in northern Mali on Wednesday against lack of security in the region hit by violence, kidnapping, and attacks from different groups. Residents and civil resistance leaders marched through the streets of the city of Gao, calling on the state to take responsibility as the country sees an increase in jihadist attacks. At least 6 soldiers were killed in incidents in 2 different areas over the weekend. Attacks by jihadists in northern Mali have also killed at least 5 UN peacekeepers this year, while the National Army and French forces claim to have killed at least 100 extremists so far this year.
We are in the streets to denounce the miserable conditions we live in here in Gao. The youth of Gao have decided to take responsibility, so the state can take responsibility in the future. and bring security, and we can live in peace. We, our wives, to go to the market in peace, our children to school, so we can go to work without any problem.
At least 53 people were killed and another 40 injured in Cameroon following a collision between a bus and a truck. The incident occurred in the town of Sanchu in the west of the country as a truck loaded with 200 liters of fuel crashed into a 70-seat bus. The impact caused a fire that charged most of the victims, and the authorities acknowledged that the ID of the bodies will be difficult. In December of 2020, a similar accident claimed the lives of 37 people. And with that story, we've come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And don't forget to follow us on our social media accounts on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram as well. For Telesur English, I'm Estefania Bravo. See you next time.